If they made it clear that he was only going to take some of the food but not all of the food, would
Yeah.
you have changed your mind?
I mean, he was like, "Hey, let's share." I think I would have, but he was like, "No, I'm taking," and he was pointing AJ with a gun. So it's like, "No, buddy, you're dead. Bye."
AJ drew the gun first, technically, but
He had
yeah.
the gun on you first. What are you talking about?
So then we all leave together after a bit of a heist, and we get back to everybody. Depending on, so it looks like either way you come back with some food, and people are okay. Brody is not okay with it.
Yeah.
No, she flips out and everything. And just so I can leave some mystery behind, it says here that Abel, the stranger with the two different eye colors,
Hmm.
his status is unknown. We don't know if he's alive or dead.
Right.
So if you pushed him and he's alive still, I don't think he's gonna be. I don't think he's gonna be really happy.
We call that pulling a Kenny.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
Or someone should be
That-
dead, but they'll just
That's
come
someone
back.
who really should be dead, but apparently it's not.
Yeah,
We'll have
So
to see.
but I don't know if it was just like because of the PTSD that, like from me and Mark's perspective, that Brody went with Minerva, the 10 twins. It could be PTSD of why she's freaking out and everything. I thought that was what it was.
Right,
but I
we'll
don't
learn
know.
more about that later.
you definitely find out more as we near the end
Oh,
or the climax
I'm-
of the episode. Go
there's
ahead.
one last little thing before we jump to that nighttime thing. That's the only thing I can think of is when Ten is drawing his cute little drawing.
Yeah.
Minerva, Sophie, sorry. And the other thing that leads to another theory of mine is he mentions that it was a couple of walkers who, it was a couple of walkers who got to Sophie and Minerva, and that's why he was drawing them. Which,
Yeah.
now I think about this episode, drew a lot of. It kept bringing up that question of are walkers people anymore? Are they, like they kept doing that a lot, but it almost made me think like, what if the train station, what if that couple were set up to continue the narrative of Sophie and Minerva being taken by walkers and not actually, I don't know, probably maybe reading too far into that. The actual question was when he's drawing Clementine on the picture, if you allow him to, 'cause that's another choice. It looked like he gave Clementine a nice cute little smile. Is it possible for him to give different things to Clementine, like a frown or just a neutral expression, depending on how he views her?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Well, because I attacked 10, I think he still gave me a smile. For me, I have it was like when I attacked him, I was like, drop your knife or I'm gonna kill you. I'm like, oh god. And me and Logan went through this. So she gave me a smile, he gave me a smile regardless. Even if you did or didn't attack.
Well, no, because I attacked him, but I also made a very strong point of apologizing and trying to make up for it. I don't know if you kept up with Stocky Clem, if he would be all like, I'll give you a frowny face then. What do you think about that? So
I don't know if that's ever covered.
All right, just curious.
So noises wakes up Clementine. She looks around. Eventually, she finds Brody and Marlin arguing about something, and then you learn the truth about what really happened. What I will ask is, did anyone suspect that there was something shady going on with Marlin, or did this come to somewhat of a surprise to you? Carson, it looked like you raised your hand.
I was going to say I was more suspicious of Brody, but and this is just me being paranoid, I somehow thought like I was in a nightmare dream scenario where somehow Abel survived and he's in the basement of the school and Brody and him were supposed to be working together. That was like my fear, like, oh my god, because I heard two voices.
That's interesting.
Oh my god, that's so scary. I thought it was Brody and the Abel working together. So that was my fear. But
Interesting.
when I went down there, it might be different because you guys went with Lewis and Asim. It was different for me and Mark because what we did is when we heard them, we saw. I eventually, when I saw it was Marlon, I didn't suspect Marlon at all. It came to me as a surprise, but I did suspect Brody after a while.
Okay.
I suspected Marlon, at least knowing more than he let on. Especially, it was this. It was this. Came late, but it came right before he went to bed, and he says, "We'll talk about it later." And he has a very. And suddenly he got very more. Can't talk today. He got a
Aggressive?
little. He got a bit more. Yeah, he got a bit more aggressive, and yeah, that's when I was like, okay, he knows something. Then of course, they find you, and what was the truth?
The truth is that Marlin gave up Sophie and Minerva to this other group in exchange for them leaving the kids alone.
I still don't get why that exchange makes any sense unless like I don't get it.
Yeah. It makes me very worried about what they needed those two girls for.
Right.
Because otherwise they're just extra mouths to feed. So what did they need them for? I don't know if that's an answer that I want to hear, but
I will be the one who can give the answer, but I'd rather not. It's basically depending on the group age and size.
Well, yeah, no, there are
It
some
could be-
people would have
but-
some people would have some needs, and they would go through really evil and really despicable ways to do that. That's
Yeah.
what I could see.
That's what me and Logan are thinking. We're thinking the same thing. But the other thing is this. We don't know what Minerva and Sophie, their skills were. Maybe the group needed it. And they thought, okay, you give us your two best, let's say, huntsmen. We'll leave you guys alone in a certain area.
Maybe.
So we don't know the certain reasons, but I think it's more diabolical and evil, like me and Lucky Jack are thinking.
Although actually, now that I think about it, now that we've learned this truth, do you think Sophie and Minerva are still alive? And we just haven't seen them. Apparently it only happened about 1 year ago. And
yeah.
if they aren't actually dead, and if the other group didn't kill them, I wonder what that would be like for, say, 10 if he learned they were still alive.
That is true.
Well, I'll speak last, so I'll let you guys think if they're alive or not.
Okay.
Well, I think in addition to that, another question is, do you think would be worse? Would it be worse for them to be dead now that 10 has come to terms with them being dead? Or would it be better for them to be alive, but what have they been doing to them this whole time while they were alive? Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, what's worse? So as far as my guess, there's no way for me to really make an educated guess of whether they're alive or not. I feel like as a mercy to them, I am hoping they're no longer alive as a mercy to them, but they could still be alive.
I don't know. That's hard to say. I kind of feel like it's a Telltale move that they're going to still be alive and that we're going to see them.
Probably.
That seems like a Telltale move.
What would be the reasoning behind that? Like, you just want to build up tension or curiosity?
It adds conflict. It's an easy way. Definitely, it would introduce a new sense of vulnerability to 10 to suddenly be met with this conflict. And of course the idea of, if it's already an emotional tearjerker to take a person away, why not do it twice or 3 times with Kenny? Just keep bringing them back just so they can keep taking them away in emotional ways.
Yeah, the new frontier. That wasn't truly Kenny. That was just a clone Kenny.
That was other Kenny.
Yeah, that was other Kenny.
But,
Kenny didn't have an eye patch on his right eye. He had an eye patch on the left.
Yeah.
so
I don't know. It was good storytelling because the fact that they made so important two characters that you don't even get to meet in person, but it's like and when they reveal you know who they're talking about because they've talked about them so much. Oh, 10 sisters, 10 sisters, 10 sisters. It's like when they tell you the truth, it's like, oh shoot. So that's what happened to them. And even though I didn't meet them, I feel for them because, they introduced them so much throughout the episode.
Well, before we go any further, it is confirmed that Sophie and Minerva, their fates are unknown, so we don't know if they're alive or dead.
It's confirmed that their fates are not confirmed.
Yes.
I feel like
I know, I just did that to you guys,
Futurama,
but
It's been confirmed
that it is confirmed that there's unconfirmed.
they're unconfirmed.
yeah.
We have unconfirmed confirmation.
But no. My guess is this. This is just a prediction, and I'm gonna piggyback off what Mark said. Mark, I do agree with what you think. It seems like a Telltale move, but I think in the wrong way, Minerva and Sophie are gonna be like hardened. They're not gonna forgive the group, except for 10, obviously, because he doesn't know about this. They're gonna be a little unforgiving. They're gonna be hateful. They're gonna be like these tough like people now. Like they're not like good people anymore.
I could definitely see them. I could see them being used as an example of what could your group end up like if you're not careful with them.
Yeah, or in a sense, like they're gonna be holding most of the group. Like, and I'm excluding 10 and maybe Violet from the group. They're gonna hold them in contempt. Like they're just mad at them.
I can see that.
So,
The big reveal you were at.
yeah, we were talking about the fight. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you confront Marlin, you find out about Brody. Marlin ends up, out of anger, striking Brody, which unfortunately is fatal. And then I have to say, like, when Marlin locks Clementine in the cellar, and then the whole scene with Brody turning, that was really intense.
It was.
Like, it was
Yeah.
very, very well done. I was very scared and frightened. The only thing that took me out of the frightened, scared mood was I was thinking Clementine would have totally, like, took out
Her knife.
Right. She would have taken care of Brody, like, sooner than she did. Like when the shelf fell on Brody and she was like wedged or trapped, I was like, she should have just taken her knife or something and like
Right.
even bashed her head with her foot, which
Which
Clementine has done before.
I think the theory is that she left her knife behind in the room with AJ.
That's true, but I had seen her earlier in that episode where Clementine used her foot to bash in a walker's head to incapacitate it. So I felt like, why couldn't she have done that? I guess you could argue that walker had gone through some decay and therefore the integrity of his head allowed Clementine to strike it with her foot and have it. I don't know. But it just seemed like
needlessly reckless, or just putting yourself in danger recklessly.
I think that could have been done better, but the flashlight turning red, amazing. That was
I like that.
so good.
Really clever way to make that natural. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of things in that room she could have used to incapacitate. It didn't have to be her foot. It could have been anything in there, like a rake or whatever. So
Once you've escaped, I was not surprised at all by what Marlin was going to start doing. The second I was locked in here, and I was immediately thinking to myself, even if I get out of here, he's going to turn this against me. And I was immediately like planning, like, okay, how am I going to try and defend myself? Because I know he's going to try and set this up on me. They do eventually when you bring up enough people, and I don't know if there's a lot of weight to the specific conversation choices you pick and use. Like I did pick up on saying like, oh yeah, like I mentioned that, oh yeah, you're not actually going to shoot us, Marlon, because you need us alive. Because that's the other big thing that Brody drops, is that at first we realized that Marlon probably was playing an act for us the entire time. That his real plan was he was going to keep us around just so we could be the next people who get to be given away and not any of his other people. And because, yeah, Brody mentions that was going to be his plan. If the Raiders came back, we would be next to go. And that was probably the only reason why Marlon was even keeping us around. So I brought that up during the confrontation, saying thought it'd be a good twofer way to A, show Marlon I'm not afraid of him, and B, also give it away to everybody else listening that, hey, this is what's going to happen.
Do you guys agree? Do you think that deep down inside, the only reason Marlon kept everyone around up to this point is so that he could use them as leverage for sacrifice?
Maybe not everyone, but specifically Clementine and AJ.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant. Like at that moment, like he only kept us around. The other
see.
people, he was closer. Of course, he's closest to all his friends. But I feel like eventually, and that's why they got angry, was that eventually he would have to start asking, okay, who is next? Who is the next most expendable? And that list was probably going to start getting whittled down smaller and smaller, and they didn't like that. It all leads up to which person do you trust to get your back?
Yeah. Well, before we get to that, I did want to mention that while I definitely did not condone Marlon's behavior throughout that scene, and even his actions with the sisters, I can still at least be somewhat sympathetic that when you're put in a position where you're supposed to be the leader, because I don't know if he asked to be the leader. I think he just was one of the oldest kids there, and nobody wanted. I'm assuming nobody wanted Lewis to be the leader, because I think Lewis was the only other.
No,
person
I would have revolted if I had Lewis
Yeah.
as the leader. No way.
It seemed like this position was placed on his lap, and to be fair, I don't think he necessarily was given a lot of opportunity to learn how to be a very good leader, and so I think that when that other group gave him an ultimatum, hey, either give us like these two people or we're gonna kill everybody, it ended up being math. It ended up being numbers game. I could either, like end up being responsible for the death of everybody, or I could be responsible for us losing these two people. And he just decided to go with what he felt would save the most people. So I can make an argument of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like what he should have done is he should have explained the situation to the rest of the group and said, this is what's happening, and not make the decision on his own, because I felt like he took it upon himself to decide that as the leader, this is what we're doing without consulting anyone and trying to come up with another plan. So that's just what I wanted to point out in somewhat Marlon's defense, while not condoning what he did. So
Okay.
Valid.
I disagree completely. I think he was just looking out for his own skin, his own neck. He didn't think he trusted anyone, and so you're right that he took it upon himself. But I think he carried that with him because he felt like, I can't trust any one of them, and if these guys come back, I may have to sacrifice another group of my friends. But he was like, I think like Alex said, he wouldn't have sacrificed all of them, not all of them, because he says in his decision he was going to try and stage a rescue, but my gut tells me he wouldn't have, even if he built up the courage to.
So you think that there were certain people in the group that Marlon didn't genuinely care about, or at least didn't care enough to want to necessarily spare them if that other group wanted more people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think he in the long term, or in the bigger picture, he was just trying to look out for himself. Really.
Okay.
I truly do believe that Marlon cares about the kids at the school, because he makes it very clear. And he makes it very clear that the choice to sacrifice the twins in order to keep everyone else alive was a very hard choice to make.
Mm-hmm.
But he does not show regret about it. He says that he'll do it again.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to remember that these are just their children who have grown up in a terrible situation for over half of their lives. But he's a kid, but again, it's just a terrible situation, and he did what he thought was best, but it was not the best thing, and he should not be forgiven in any sort of way. So yeah.
I think when we asked earlier who did we appeal to, I think it was split in half. Half of us appealed to Lewis and the other half appealed to Violet. Because I think it was me and who else appealed to Lewis?
I did as well.
And then the other two appealed to Violet. So for any of you, why did you choose to appeal with the person that you appealed to?
I chose to appeal with Lewis because I felt between him and Violet, I felt closer to Lewis first off, so I felt like I could have had a better chance with him just based on the other decisions I made. That, and again, I saw this as I had to quickly think of this from Marlon's perspective as well. If you were Marlon, I think you would have listened to Lewis telling you to put the gun down a little more than Violet telling you to put the gun down. So I
Right.
chose Lewis, thinking that he would be able to appeal to, he would be able to make that appeal to Marlon a lot more smoothly.
Funnily enough, I have the same reasoning, but for Violet, I felt closer to Violet in my playthrough. I went to the river to fish with her and got to learn more about her. So I felt closer to Violet, so I appealed to Violet, and she, like Lewis, was a bit hesitant at first, but eventually came around. Although Lewis was like really hesitant because he and Marlon are best friends, and initially he was like, I got to go with Marlon because he's my best friend. So I think it was easier to persuade Violet.
Well, besides that, I didn't like Lewis, or should I just? No.
Right. So you liked Violet more, so you appealed to
I
her.
liked Violet more, but my reasoning is a little bit different than Mark's. I had felt that because I liked Violet more, it would help my case, or because I went with her in the fishing boat, so I would be able to understand her. But I also knew after that conversation with her, and when you're fishing, I understood that Violet was very close to Minerva and Sophie. So if I'm going to appeal to someone, I should appeal to someone who is more closer to the 10 twins, and especially the fact that she is guilty. She feels guilty herself for not being there. So if she was with that group, Violet would have been taken as well. So that would have made more sense to appeal to her.
I think if I played the game, I probably would have gone with Lewis.
Oh,
because,
God.
but it would have been extremely risky because it is stated that Lewis is Marlon's best friend. So it's like during an extremely tense situation, and of course he's gonna stick. You think that he's gonna stick with his best friend, but it's also a good tactic to turn the best friend against, because of course Marlon is gonna listen to Lewis. That's a fact. But there's also you mentioned that Violet was really close to the twins, and using the twins argument could bring Violet on your side, especially because Violet was dating one of the twins. So I don't know. Both options have their ups and downs, and I know I would have chosen Lewis, but they're both great options, honestly.
I have the poll for it. So who did you turn to for help? 66% of players turned to Violet for help against Marlon. So 34% of players turned to Lewis for help against Marlon. So I think more people appealed to Violet because they had figured out, wait, if she had gone with the group, she would have been taken too.
Which is why I feel like Violet and Lewis are this season's Carly and Doug. Because I think Carly and Doug's stats were very similar as well.
No.
No?
I don't know what you're talking
No.
about.
I mean, 80% of people chose Carly.
Okay,
As
so
much as I
more.
love Doug.
Okay, way more people chose
Yeah.
Carly over Doug.
Yeah.
But maybe even just from not necessarily from a who appeal to who more question, but more of I think the game is definitely kind of sort of making you decide which character Clementine ends up having a deeper relationship with, like Violet or Lewis. So I find that really interesting. here.
Yay.
Hey, Ark, I wanted to give you an update on something. Apparently for The Walking Dead Season 1, Episode 1, Who Did You Save? The recent poll shows that 51% saved Doug and 48% saved Carly.
Interesting.
Oh yeah, but that's like back when the game came out, the percentages of like because that's like how many years ago?
It's
Again, so many years.
It was
So
many years
many.
ago.
6
But
years.
The recent
back then, but back then it was like an 8% against a 91%.
Because
so
people were
it
thinking
was
more practically
huge.
then. They didn't know
Yeah.
how it would affect things. Now, it's just, again, I think a lot of people are acting off of hindsight or they are thinking differently. Well, yeah, I feel like in terms of getting that gut instinct, like quick reaction to that, that's why I usually agree. That's why I usually agree with the polls initially.
Right. When the game's been out for a while, people kind of know what's going to happen, or they kind of might have some knowledge about what certain decisions will cause what to happen, and therefore I think that skews the numbers.
I just thought it would have been reversed. 51 Carly, 48 Doug. That just would have been me.
After the appeal, go ahead. Sorry, I was just trying to get back on track there.
You have a decision of whether to go for the gun or basically verbally assault Marlin, try to demean him. Regardless of what you do, though, I think the ending's always the same.
Yeah.
I think.
Yep.
I've checked. It is.
And
Except for the endings where Marlon kills Clementine, but those have to be restarted.
Right,
So.
right.
Those are non-canonical.
The other,
Yep.
the I can see, the only thing that I could see changing is that, the only thing that I could see changing is what AJ says to try and justify what just happened.
Right.
Depending on what you said at the very beginning, whether it be don't hesitate, aim for the head, or save the bullet for yourself.
What would he have said if you told him to save the last bullet for himself?
For me, he said, which honestly, now I think about it, I chose that one, just thinking back to trying to like prevent you from ever hurting anybody if you're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
For me, if you pick that, AJ ends up giving the weakest argument out of all of them, which is he'll say, "What? I saved the last bullet for myself." Which I'm just like, that doesn't make any sense of why you would shoot him though.
I saved one for me.
Yeah, that was it. I saved the last.
I saved one for me. I didn't shoot twice. I only shot once.
I'm just like that. That ends up being the weakest freaking argument out of all three of them.
That is true.
I assume the other ones are what? I didn't hesitate. What? I didn't hesitate, or what? I aimed for the head. Like, I'm assuming those are the other two variants.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure.
But for those who are not picking up what's going on, basically and I tried to do this. Maybe I don't know what Mark, Hark, or Logan, or even Alex would have done. I had tried to appeal him, like try to give him a second chance because I'm just goody two shoes. Say, hey, we can still make this work, and he drops the gun and he just wants to leave and go away, like he just wants to disappear. I say, no, you can stay. I was gonna say, no, you can stay, but you're not gonna be the leader. And that's when Marlon gets shot in the head by AJ. So, like, what was your guys's? What I'm basically trying to ask is what were your guys's take on it? Were you trying to get the gun away? Were you trying to talk him down, or were you trying to like say, "Hey, we can make this work"?
I would have been pissed at him. Like, no, you're a gun buddy. Like, leave right now. But I don't know if I would have gone for the gun because I'm a wimp and I have noodle arms. But Clementine doesn't. So I don't know. But I would not have tried to be like, oh, you just made a mistake. We can work this out. No, you're out. Leave right now. But he gets shot, so that has no consequences.
Yep. I was going to select the option, you can stay, but you're not going to be the leader. We're going to do this as a group. We'll make decisions. This shouldn't just fall on one person.
Yeah. What about you, Hark? What did you choose?
I went after the gun. Just because he was waving the gun around, I saw an opening, and so my Clementine went for it. And I thought, act now and then try to talk him down later. I felt it would be easier to talk him down when he didn't have a weapon in his hand. And so that's what I ended up doing.
But you ended up kicking him in the face when you could not have to.
Was that an automatic thing? I don't think I chose
No,
to
no,
kick
no.
him in the face.
No,
Oh.
you can, if you click once, he drops to his knees, and then you can
Oh.
kick again to kick him in the face, and you
Oh.
did. You have the choice to not kick him further.
I did not know that. Okay. I did not know that. I wasn't
Try
sure
to
if it was...
listen to season 1, episode 1, when you're killing the first zombie, you have like the last option to hit the zombie one more time. And if you don't, then the zombie's already dead. There's no issue. Or you can hit it one more time.
One more time. Sorry.
Yeah. Just for one. Yeah. But yeah. Just so you know.
Okay.
I don't want to feel you left out, Mark. What did you do?
I initially tried to talk him down, saying, "Oh, we can fix this," and then when he just wanted to go, I said, "Well, wait, you can stay, but not as a leader."
Oh.
Yeah. After I took the gun away from him, I told him he can stay, but not as a leader as well. I wasn't sure if I told him he would be our prisoner. I might have said we would keep him prisoner. I don't know.
Hark, you're cruel. You're gonna be our prisoner from now on.
Well,
that was-
versus shooting him in the head. I mean,
At least he gets to, yeah.
I wasn't, the option of sending him out wasn't. I didn't think sending him out would be a good option because what's to stop him from coming back and like seeking revenge?
And if not even seeking revenge, what would happen if the raiders got to him and like...
The guy clearly has anger management issues, so I can see him coming back for revenge. So the other option was shooting him or letting him stay, and I don't think he's stable enough right now to let him stay without being watched or incarcerated. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was the most humane thing to do, would be to have him stay and be a prisoner.
So yeah, that is where the episode ends. And
what were your thoughts on what AJ did?
He did what he thought was best.
Yeah, I see. I think he jumped the gun. I think at that moment he only saw him as a threat. He
jumped the gun. Sorry.
He lacked the ability, because he's a child, very young and still developing. He lacks the ability to think that people can change, because all his life he's been seeing people be hurtful, be traitorous, be just he's thinking too much, just black and white, no gray area. He's thinking that he was thinking Marlon is a bad person. I want a bad person to go away. Not that this bad person could become good and made tough decisions. He made bad choices for good reasons. Like AJ lacks that ability to comprehend that. I think this was a great episode. This almost was like season 1 for me. I felt like this was a much higher quality episode than most of 2 and some of 3. I'm looking forward to, if they're going to have fewer episodes, that they'll be able to put more content in them and not have it feel like some arbitrary limit they were trying to reach. And looking at how this has ended with AJ and how much it seems my choices will actually affect him, if I had to predict where this whole season is going, if season 1 was about Lee trying to keep Clementine on the right track and to try and keep her from being exposed to bad things and from doing a bad thing, I think it's too late for AJ. I think AJ has already reached this point where not a point of no return, but I feel like AJ has already reached a point where he's lost some sense of humanity. He doesn't have that same thing that Clementine had when Lee first found her. And I think besides keeping whatever group is left with us alive as long as we can, I think a lot of what this season is going to be is Clementine trying to bring AJ back and to try and redeem AJ and try to reinstill that sense of innocence, if that's even possible.
I want to disagree. I don't think you can reinstate that innocence. Once it's gone, it's very difficult to get back. But I do what you're trying to say. You're just trying to make AJ a morally good person is what you're trying to say.
Yeah. You were about to say something, Hark?
I disagree that AJ is immoral. I disagree that he's lost innocence, because I don't think that what he did was something that necessarily means he's not innocent. because I know that a lot of people in comment sections for that scene were saying, "Oh my gosh, AJ, what did you do? AJ's growing up to be a sociopath and blah blah blah." I don't think AJ's a sociopath, and the reason I say that is because when I think sociopath, I think somebody who's just going to shoot someone because they feel like it, or just I shot that person just because like he bothered me, so I shot him. The reason why AJ shot Marlon, it was for a very good reason, because he saw Marlon as being a threat to all of those kids. He was waving around that gun. He could have shot 10. He could have shot Clementine. He could have shot Lewis. He could have shot a lot of people. And I think that AJ, who was born into this situation where his entire life he was being taught to live each day making decisions that would cause him to either live or die, because that's why Clementine's constantly asking him questions. Remember to do this or remember to do that. Those are all like dead or alive decisions. That was one of those instances where I was like, okay, this guy's a threat. He could kill us all. I'm going to take out that threat. And he did it without... A lot of people thought it was very cold of him to say, what? I shot him in the head. Like, a lot of people was like, oh my gosh, that's immoral. Or, oh my gosh, like, he's a cold-blooded killer. I'm like, I don't think that makes him immoral or a cold-blooded killer, because there was a reason behind it. If he had just shot Marlon, again, just because he looked at him funny, then yeah, I'd be like, there's something wrong with AJ. So I don't think he's lacking morals here, is my argument. And I think that's what a lot of people who react to what AJ did, their initial gut, I understand it's shocking for us that he did that. And for us, it might seem like, oh, he's lacking morals. But looking at it based on how he's grown up and what the logic is in his head, I don't think that's him being immoral or a sociopath. Then
I guess the only way I could then continue that would be that I would like, if we were just looking at the situation by itself specifically, I would like to find some way to convince him that there is a reason why you shouldn't just pull the trigger and just kind of cutting back to that moment when you could have disarmed 10 or just could have called out to him to put it down. I feel like I would like to find some way where I could convince AJ you don't always have to shoot, or you could just he could have just pointed the gun and just that could have been it. He could have had the control, the power. He did not have to take a life.
Yeah.
Right. I also find very interesting how he specifically shot Marlon in the head, because since children tend to have a very black and white view of the world. Like, there are bad things and there are good things. There's no gray area when it comes to kids. And all AJ has ever known is that there are people and there are monsters. And monsters have to be shot in the head. That's all he's known his entire life. And in that moment, Marlon specifically became a monster in his eyes. So he did what he was always taught he was supposed to do. He shot him in the head.
I like that you said that, because that made me realize something. If you notice, I don't think AJ ever calls the zombies walkers. He never calls them walkers. He always calls them monsters. And I think that, based on what Alex just said, monsters don't always have to be walkers. So that might be why he just refers to them as monsters, because he just sees them as threats. And Marlon was just as much of a threat as a walker was. I
think it's hard for him to try and comprehend something. Because, and I think about, like, they came up with that unifying name because he doesn't want to. I don't know if this was Clem teaching him to do this off screen, that we have because I can't control that. So this either happened off screen or something else, or if they found a way to, okay, well, there are people, but then there are monsters, because he doesn't want to try and comprehend a person can be bad. If a person's bad, they're just a monster. They're not a person anymore. I don't know. There's been this weird line being drawn between walkers and people, and being a walker could be nice. So being a person, it's just that. By the way, that's another line I never got, was 10 saying, I don't know, maybe being a walker is nice. I'm like, really?
Are you
I think
sure?
I think I can think of at least 5 different experiences in the last 2 seasons where that was not at all a good thing. I don't get it.
Mark, what are your thoughts on AJ's behavior at the end?
Yeah, so like we've been saying, this is all he knows. This is the only world that he knows where it's just harsh conditions, survival of the fittest and all that. So of course, everyone who lived before the collapse of society look at what he did, and they're just like mortified. But of course, he doesn't see it that way. Me personally, yeah, I don't agree with what he did, but at least I understand it, and I'm interested to see what the fallout of that's going to be in the next episode.
I think it plays on the theme of what does humanity mean in this situation, in a zombie apocalypse situation, because I think that a lot of what AJ does is, as Alex said, is black and white. If I do this, it will a lot of whether or not you should or shouldn't shoot someone is based on balancing risk versus reward. And yeah, maybe it might not have been the best idea to shoot Marlin, but are you willing to risk him? Are you going to risk whatever the consequences are if you kept him alive and didn't shoot him? So that's what a lot of humanity is in this world, is deciding what's risky enough to take the risk, or what's too much of a risk that might end up biting you in the butt later.
I just wanted to point out the similarities and between the ending of this episode and the ending of episode 1 of season 3, which I did watch, because they end very similar with someone suddenly getting shot in the head, if y'all remember.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference is that in this episode, that whole someone suddenly getting shot in the head was done extremely well. Meanwhile, in season 3, it was horrible because there was no build up to it. It was very similar in the way that you had this wholesome moment before it, everything was going fine, everything was perfect, and then suddenly someone was dead. And then in this episode as well, everything was going fine, Marlon had calmed down, and then suddenly he was dead. But the difference is that with episode 1 of season 3, it was like getting a rug pulled from under your feet. Like you're standing in a rug and then suddenly someone pulls it from under your feet, and that sucks. But in this season, they made it so well and they built up to it so well, with the whole the voices in the pipe, following the voices, finding out, then the whole confrontation with Marlon. It's like instead of someone pulling a rock from under your feet, it's like a roller coaster where you're slowly climbing to the top and you know exactly what's gonna happen. And you're expecting, and then suddenly it happens, and you have the time of your life. But when someone pulls a rug from under your feet, you only end up with a broken nose, a twisted ankle, and a sore butt, and it sucks.
The season 3 episodes, what you're saying is the season 3 episode 1 episode, it was just more for the shock value,
right?
Yeah. And it wasn't really necessary. They just did it just to shock you.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it even made sense in that situation. Why would they just shoot this random girl? I don't understand.
Who was unarmed.
Who was unarmed and just picked up a CD. I don't understand why. Of all of the people that they were there, I would have shot Javier. I would have shot
the gun, yeah.
One of the adults, not the girl first.
But yeah, it just definitely, it definitely felt like it felt unjustified.
Yeah. I totally agree with Alex on that. Carson, what were you gonna say?
Well, with the whole AJ shooting Marlon in the head and everything, I when you were asking how did we all feel, I felt more appalled, if that makes any sense. It's just like thinking, wait a minute, I'm shocked what AJ did. I get it that we're in a post-apocalyptic world, but I just thought Clementine would have at least had some decency to teach her what's right and what's wrong, what you should do and what you should not do, handle the situation, let her handle the situation, be the no, I'm not going to confirm it with you, Alex. I will not do it. To be the mom of the group. Yeah, you know, and so I just felt like it was necessary for her to try and like teach those things to a little toddler who's still trying to learn. Now I get it that he doesn't know what's right and wrong. I get that, but I was like with the whole group on this, like shocked that AJ's capable of doing this kind of thing, and not, like he didn't even feel like, okay, I did it, big deal. Well, let's do something else.
I think in that situation, it's a lot easier to teach a child when to shoot versus teaching a child when to not shoot. Because there's so many exceptions. There's like, well, you should not shoot when this happens and this happens. I just feel like it's hard to like explain to AJ what sort of things needs to line up so that it's okay, so that you shouldn't be shooting someone.
Yeah.
'Cause it seemed like
Right.
there's so many things that Marlon was doing that made logical sense. Okay, this is a situation where I need to shoot him. So
The
Harsh,
list,
you're such a cruel person.
the
I'm so
Right.
savage. I know.
no, it makes sense. The list of reasons why you would shoot someone should be less than the list of reasons why you wouldn't shoot someone, and then again, you get to that issue of the gray area,
Right.
which
Right.
we as adults and Clementine as someone who's gone through this all can comprehend that idea of a gray area. AJ in that panic situation, which I also get the feeling he has not been in many situations like that.
Yeah.
That I've been told. The game better tell me in a future episode what happened at the ranch, but as far as I've told, AJ has never been in a situation like that, at least not recently or not that often.
Yeah.
Right. And what Clementine taught him was to shoot monsters, and in that moment, Marlon was a monster.
A monster.
Yeah. So, all in all, between the next season, or not to say, between the next episode, I am very much excited to be, and I'm very much curious to see where it's going to go and how they're going to all react after that moment, since we don't get a chance to actually see them react to it.
Yeah. How do you predict things are going to play out in the next episode? You know, following immediately after what AJ did. What do you think's going to happen?
No idea.
No idea.
No clue.
Because for a while there, I thought that Clementine would end up pulling a Marcus, as in a Marcus from Detroit Become Human, and like take over as the leader. And that was when I was thinking we were going to take Marlon prisoner. I thought, okay, I can see Clementine like becoming a leader. But right now, I don't know. Things might be a little strained about making her a leader. But
Yeah.
we'll see.
Right.
Mark, do you have any thoughts or predictions?
I feel like in the next episode we're going to see the returning character or characters.
Oh, who do you think's going to be returning?
Well, it was alluded to before, but we think Lily's going to return.
Yes.
Do you think Lily might be part of that group?
Yeah. Although I'm also holding out hope for Krista because
I hope for Krista too.
we never got resolution with her.
Yeah.
And I would really, really like to see one or both of them.
And Krista never officially met Lily, so that would be really interesting if they ended up in the same group together somehow. How about you, Carson? Do you have any thoughts or predictions?
Well, just to build off on this, the first thing I want to say is this is kind of important, I guess it could have an effect on the story, is the ending stats that I'm reading, which is Violet, Lewis, 10, and Alvin Jr. So it can play maybe a big role later in the future. 34%, when it came to Violet, 34% left her feeling horrified when you appealed to Lewis. And 66% left her feeling guilty when you appealed to her.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's where, for me and Mark, we could probably be leaning in the guilty area because she does feel guilty and horrified of like the whole action. With Lewis, which I'm gonna throw Alex's boy under the bus, who I will hope dies in episode 2.
Oh, okay.
34% left him feeling lost if you appealed to him, and 66 left him feeling heartbroken. So it's vice versa. But there are 3 stats with 10 and Alvin Jr. 23, I don't know which one you guys got. 23% left him feeling resentful. And 49% left him feeling bitter, and the other left him feeling helpless. And Alvin Jr., like 55%, which is the group I'm in, is hardened, 31's ruthless, and 14 is pragmatic.
Okay.
But what is my prediction and my thoughts? I loved this episode. I really loved it. The mechanics, the story that was driven, the different personalities and the characters, the way the surprise was at the end, and the whole cellar thing was just what I needed. Like that little that fear thing kicking in. But the ending I did not expect to happen. What are my predictions? Well, Mark already said one of them. The whole return of Lily, which I will still hop on that wagon. I do think we can see. I think we will see Krista eventually, but not in the way we want. Maybe like she'll be dead. But for the group right now, my prediction is this: there's going to be a strain in relationship. Some people are not going to trust Clementine, and some are going to trust Clementine. It's all depending on the relationships you built currently. So mine is some will be okay with Clementine, and some will not. Because AJ's wherever AJ does, whatever you do with AJ's gonna stick with you like glue. So whatever you say or do, they're gonna look at AJ as well. So I say you're gonna run into that Raider group or at the Able group. I think you're gonna run into them, and that's where things are gonna kick off.
The only prediction that I have is that someone will become determinant, and I'm gonna suffer. Because I have a weak spot for Telltale's determinant characters. They're always my favorite for some reason, and I always suffer because of them. So yeah.
What people haven't said about this episode that I also really liked is I thought the length was very good, because when I was playing Telltale games back in Walking Dead Season 1, the episodes were like 3 to 4 hours of playtime when you first play through them. And I have noticed, not only through the Walking Dead series but other Telltale game series, that their episodes have become less and less. The length of them have become less and less, to the point where I think there's a few episodes that actually were just a little bit over an hour long. Like I think in the New Frontier, the second episode was like an hour. So I thought that was too short. So part of me is happy that they decided to go with 4 episodes instead of 5 and make each episode too short. So I will applaud Telltale for, again, coming back to the length that I think we were used to back in Season 1.
So far from this first episode alone, I hope they all remain this strong. And if this does end up being the last Walking Dead thing Telltale ever touches, then I'd be okay with that. I feel like it's been a long time coming, and I think they really should continue to do their own things and branch out, not just be, anchored to one franchise.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I wanted to say thank you so much to Alex, Logan, Mark, and Carson for joining us today for this Let's Talk. Kathleenum said she would love to join us next time, so hopefully we'll be able to have her join us as well, because I'm sure we would love to see her perspective on things. But if you out in the audience at home have some thoughts on some of the things we've discussed, if you agreed with, disagreed with, let us know if you are Team Violet or Team Lewis or some other character. Let us know. I'm definitely in Team Asim. Team Asim, I like that.
Team Asim.
Team Asim.
He's a cutie.
And what your predictions are for the second episode. And we will be back to completely overanalyze episode 2, probably another 4.5 hours of overanalysis.
Oh, God.
If I don't arrive late.
If you wanted to learn more than you ever wanted to know about a Walking Dead episode, you come to the right place. So, Thank you guys for watching, and until next time, love yourselves and love each other. Bye.